So the purpose of this video is to show you how to create your first MIDI song in Reaper. And it's not going to require that you know how to use Reaper at all. I'm going to assume you just downloaded it and you just want to create your first piece of music. We're also just going to focus on MIDI, no audio recording at all. We'll do that in other videos. So when we first open Reaper, it should look like this, with our tracks over here and our mixer down over here. Let's hide the mixer to make room for a virtual MIDI keyboard. We'll go up here to the View menu and deselect our mixer. Now it's hidden. Then we'll go up here to the Actions menu, Show Action List, type into the filter Virtual, and then choose Show Virtual MIDI Keyboard. Double-click it, and it shows a virtual MIDI keyboard down here, which you could play if you don't have a USB MIDI keyboard using a computer keyboard. So if I put this window in focus, I could type the Z key and get C2 or X or C or so on. But if you do have a USB MIDI keyboard, we could play it on that, which is what we're going to do in this video. So now let's go to our preferences. On PC, Control P, and on Mac, Command Comma. That opens up our Reaper preferences. We'll go down under Audio to Device, and make sure you choose your computer audio interface plugged into your computer. I'm using this one, but make sure it shows up in here, so we could hear our audio in Reaper. Then we'll go to our MIDI inputs, and if you're using a USB MIDI keyboard, it should show up in here. Make sure you choose it. I'm using this one, and make sure input is checked. If not, just check it right here, and then hit OK. Now I want to download some free VST instruments to use, and these are two of my favorites. If we go to our browser, the first one is a drum sample plugin called Sitala, which we could use for our drums. Click the link, and it takes us to this website. Now Sitala 2.0 isn't free, but the 1.0 version still is, and that's the one we're going to use in this video. So we'll go up here to the frequently asked questions, and then we'll choose 1.0 is still available, and click the old version over here. And now those versions show up where we could pick based on our operating system. Now 2.0 will have more features, so if you want those features, please support them if you can. But in this video, we're going to be using the free version 1.0. The next plugin we're going to be using is called Numa Player by Studio Logic, and it's also completely free to download and has some great piano and keyboard sounds. Click the link, it takes us to this website, just hit the download button and choose your operating system over here. Then we can download and install both of these plugins and reopen Reaper. So let's start by creating a new track. We can double click over here. We can put this track into record and set up our input over here. We'll go down to MIDI. Now we could choose whatever USB MIDI keyboard we're using, or we could choose all MIDI inputs. And what this is going to do is it'll record any MIDI device we play, but we'll also see it in the virtual MIDI keyboard down here. So I'll choose all MIDI inputs, all channels. Then I'm going to go to the record mode and switch it from record input to MIDI overdub right here. And what that's going to do is we can record on MIDI in passes. So if I'm doing drums and I want to record the kick, snare, and hi-hat separately, we could do it like you'd record a drum machine, one pass after another, and it won't delete or erase the previous pass. Then I'm going to right-click the record button and choose automatic record arm when track selected. What that does is if the track isn't selected, the track isn't in record. And if we select the track, it is. So we don't have to hit this record button each time. We can just select each track, and the track will go into record. So we'll hear the MIDI on that track each time, which, as you'll see, will be more convenient when we have more tracks. Then I want to quantize my input on the way in case I play it sloppy. So I'm going to right-click over here, go down to Track Recording Settings, Input Quantize, which opens this dialog. We'll turn Quantize Track MIDI Recording on, and I'm going to switch it to 16th notes, because the fastest notes I'm going to play are 16th notes. So I can close this, and this track is ready to be recorded too. But to save us time in the future, let's save it as a track template. Right-click it, go down here to save tracks as track template, and we can give it a name, and then save it. And now we can delete this track and right-click at any point, insert track from template, and choose that track template right here. And that creates that MIDI track, saving us the trouble of setting it up each time. Let's give it a name, and now it's ready to go. Then I'm going to set up a loop so we can record in loop mode. I'll create a time selection from bar 1 to bar 3, creating a 2-bar loop. Make sure we turn on looping right here, although it should be on by default. I'm also going to change the project tempo to be 88 beats per minute. So it'll be a bit slower, and that's the tempo we're going to use for this song. Then we'll go to the effects on this track and search in the filter for Sitala. And if it doesn't show up right here, right-click down here and scan for new plugins. And then it should show up if you installed it correctly. Let's double-click it, and it opens up and looks like this. Now Sitala comes with its own samples. Or we could drag in our own custom sounds if we want. But to keep it simple, let's just use these, but let's tweak them a bit. We'll start with the kick and bring the tuning down a bunch. Like this. Make it deeper. We'll go to the snare and tune this up a bit. And adjust the shape so it shortens the release. And then for the hi-hat, we'll tune it up a bit. We'll pan it to the left a bit and bring the volume down about 3 dB. And then finally, we'll adjust the clap. We're just going to use these 4 sounds. We'll bring the volume down of this a bit. So now we're ready to record our part. Let's go to the metronome, turn it on, right-click it. It opens up this dialog, and we'll set it to count off 1 bar, and only have it play during recording and count in during recording. So now we'll hear that click before we record. Then it goes into recording. So let's start with our kick and snare. And we can see our kick is going to be triggered with C2, the snare C#2, the closed hat with D2, and the hand clap with B2. So if I play it once again, we'll see it on our keyboard. And triggered by hitting those keys. So let's record this part, starting with the kick and snare in the first pass. Without stopping it, we could just add the other parts, starting with the hi-hat and moving on to the clap. We could stop it and hear it back without hearing a click. Sounds pretty good. Now we can move on to another sound. But before we do that, this video is getting pretty long, so I divided it into 4 parts. Check out part 2 next. So that's pretty much it. That's how to create your first MIDI song in Reaper. Hope you learned something, hope you can use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bingo, boys, let's go.